Hello, and welcome to Whimsically Wicked, a reading duet. I am just giving you a quick PSA at the beginning of this one. This is part 2 of a 2-part series on this one. If you want to see stuff about the media surrounding this book and some of our thoughts and feelings around that, you should check out part 1. Part 2 will be diving into the differences between the book and the movie, which one we thought was better, and some of the things they dropped and kept and all of that here. If you need any resources for domestic violence,
they will be in the description of this book, and we'll also throw them on our link tree in our Instagram bio so that you can click into there as well.
So enjoy part 2. If you want any more information on this or you think we missed anything, check out part 1. And then if you need to comment and tell us we missed something, feel free to do so.
Yeah, hit us up. Okay, thanks so much. Enjoy.
Bye.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Whimsically Wicked, a reading duet. My name is Haley, and I'm the whimsical half.
And my name is Daria, and I'm the wicked half.
Normally, we kind of have swapped outfits.
I went on brand.
This
is the only piece of floral clothing I own, so I wore it.
And I went for the dark outfit, which is not very whimsical of me this week, but...
Traded, apparently.
Yeah. Let's try that again. Welcome to Whimsically Wicked. I'm the wicked half.
And apparently I'm going to be whimsical today, which should be fun.
On this episode of Whimsically Wicked, we book clubbed again, and we are here to talk about, I don't want to be too blunt, but like the most successful author right now, I think.
She's got to be, given the just pure amount of books she's managed to pump out, and then now you're heading into like J.K. Rowling, Collins, all of those authors area of movies.
This author has had 26 books released between the years of 2012 and 2022. It has sold, this one book that we're going to be talking about has sold over 8 million copies as of 2022. So we're not even talking into 2024. And this book spent over 140 weeks on the New York Times bestsellers list. This author also made the top 100 most influential people of all time in Time magazine in 2023, which authors do not make. And in total, her books have sold approximately 20 million. Again, that's of October 2022. And 8.6 million of those was in 2022 alone. During this year, she has sold more than Dr. Seuss. She sold more than James Patterson and John Grisham combined. She also sold more copies than the Bible in 2022, and more than Stephen King. That was almost 2 years ago. I couldn't find updated information, but she also, in 2023, held 6 of the 10 bestseller lists on the New York Times, including both 1 and 2.
Damn.
Which is crazy, and I feel like we are on the side of Book Talk that kind of just, like, shames the writing, and it has so much negative review on it, so we don't...
Vehemently negative.
Like, so we don't see it as much.
I finally got... We've created the Dark Romance Girls group chat now in Discord, because before I was just going through Danielle. So now all 4 of us are in the same group chat together. And
amazing.
I was like, hey, reporting back, like, I watched the movie for this, and everyone was like, no. Immediately no.
Yeah. So if you haven't guessed who we're talking about yet, the author is obviously Colleen Hoover, and the book that we read is It Ends With Us. We read the book, and then we went and saw the movie that came out on August 9th. And what a crazy ride. Did you know she was this successful?
I was pretty sure she was that successful. Well, if you walk into like a Barnes & Noble or an Indigo, there's a whole table dedicated to her. There is no one else who has a whole table dedicated to them at the bookstore. So like I assumed it was like fairly popular, but that's insane. I wonder how that stacks up to books like Harry Potter.
Well, I am thinking, because I personally have only read the one book. I've kind of been putting off reading anything by her, but I didn't like her writing style. That was the main issue that I had with the book that we read. And I'm kind of thinking, how long are we going to be waiting for all of her books to show up at the secondhand bookstores and Goodwill like we see of Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey and the Mortal Instruments? Because you can find so many copies at those stores.
Oh, yeah.
How long before all of her books get sent over there?
Because that's a good point. Last time I went to the bookstore, I didn't see any of her books. People must be holding on to those things.
Yeah, but how long?
How long?
Because when we do go to those and we go to the like section, remember at We Book In when we go to the section that's just like overfill?
Yeah.
And we see so many Mortal Instruments, so many Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey, like, and there's just a lot of those copies. I wonder. She has sold a lot of books.
Yeah, even by virtue of the fact that, like, okay, they're not good, but also the pure number of them. Like, eventually a bunch of them have to end up there as people, like, clean out their books, as people evolve as readers, and they're like, okay, I don't need this on my shelf anymore because it doesn't really fit the plan.
Right. Yeah. It would look out of place here.
That's why the one Colleen Hoover book I own and have never read is in book jail behind the couch.
Which one do you own?
I have Ugly Love.
Oh, that one's newer?
I think so. I think that one's more like a 2022 book.
Yeah, okay. The only other one that I've been told to try is Verity by her, but it sounds like that one's a little bit outside of the romance genre.
Yeah, I feel like that one is almost, and I haven't read it all the way. I DNF'd that book, actually, after like a chapter and a half, which is fast for me. I feel like that one gives Gone Girl vibes.
That's what I've heard. More like
Yeah.
thriller type.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's more thriller than romance.
But I've also heard so many negative things about that, and I just wonder if we're on the wrong side of book talk to see the positive views, because I don't get it.
I have one friend who's ever recommended them to me.
But she's so popular. I guess we're going to talk about why. I think we're going to preface this with there will be spoilers in here. So by the time this episode comes out, the movie is going to be out for almost 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And the book has been out since 2016 and has sold over 8 million copies. So if you haven't read it yet, or if you don't care, just keep listening, because we're going to talk about it and we're going to give you everything you need to know so that you don't actually have to read it.
Which I've already been told is what several people are using this episode for. They're like, I have no idea about the drama around the movie. I don't understand, like, the book, haven't touched it, but I can't wait for your podcast episode so I can hear all about it.
Perfect. Okay, so we both read this book last week-ish. And what did you think? What did you rate this book?
I actually don't think I've rated it yet, but I think I would do... See, the way my rating scale works, I finished it, and I think I would have finished it anyway, out of pure morbid curiosity.
Me too.
So I'm going to give it a 2-star.
Okay. I gave it a 1.
That's fair.
I had a couple people text me after they saw my Goodreads update, and they just, like, it was 1 star, no review. I just left it. I was like, I'm not putting energy into reviewing it because I'm going to be doing it here anyways.
I've just started putting our podcast, will be reviewed on.
Oh, smart.
If you want, I'll give like a snippet of like a quick review, like a couple sentences, and then be like, if you want more detail than this, hit up Whimsically Wicked.
Yeah.
Yeah. My rating system, DNFs are 1 stars.
Okay. I don't even rate them if I DNF.
It depends on where I DNF too. Like if I DNF really early in the book, I just won't read it. If I DNF it like halfway through, we're gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give it a rating. But yeah, I gave this 2 because I finished it, and I would have finished it regardless.
Okay, fair enough.
So it was captivating in a way to get me there.
Yeah. I think the first thing that we need to talk about before getting into the actual book is the trigger warnings.
Oh, God.
So I guess first, you can find trigger warnings online. And if you have triggers, I would recommend looking at them before reading this book, because there are some in there.
Yep.
With that being said, Colleen Hoover has never put out a trigger warning for any of her books, to my understanding, and none of them trace back to her.
No, like none of the lists available online. Like I had to find them on Reddit or like random blogs.
And I did find a Reddit thread about this, being like, why does Colleen Hoover not put trigger warnings in her books? Because I think in the book community, it's pretty widely understood and respectable to do that if you have things that are triggers for trauma and things like that in your books, as optional trigger warnings. And basically, Colleen Hoover has spoken out about this, saying that she doesn't think that they're necessary because she thinks that they're spoilers.
Which is absolutely crazy in my brain because I view triggers the same way I view consent. The trigger warning list is the consent for this book. It is a list of things that, like, maybe you don't want to consent to having to read, and you shouldn't have to. So, like, yeah, I chronically skip the triggers, but they're there, and I'm choosing not to read them. Versus, like, a book where they aren't there, and then I'm reading it, and I'm like, wait. Scroll back, what are the trigger warnings? Because I might hit one of my triggers and I'll be like, okay, that's totally fair. And then I'll scroll back and be like, hey, are there more in here I should worry about? Any of that?
Right.
And then I'll just keep going if I'm like, all right, well, if it doesn't get worse than this, I'm fine. But like, and the thing that gets me is like my only actual kind of like mild trigger I've come across is domestic violence, especially the kind they have in this book where it's like the yelling, the throwing, the like uncontrollable anger pieces there. I was like, oh, I really don't like this. It's one of the things with ACOTAR, why I DNF'd it the first time I read it back when it was first released, was in book 2. And I was like, oh honey, no.
Yeah. Well, that's why one of our friends also isn't reading it because of that. And what I think, speaking as somebody who literally has barely read a trigger warning in my life, the first time I've ever actually looked at the trigger warnings for a book was Butcher and Blackbird, because those were intentionally there to add to the experience. They were funny, they were witty, but they also informed you of the things that are going to be coming up in the book. I thought that Bryn Weaver actually did a really, really good job with her trigger warnings. But chronically, I read books that have a ton of traumatic events, things that could be triggers, and I go in blindly. That is who I am, and that's who I've always been. But I am also a huge advocate for exactly what you are saying. They are completely optional. Your readers can choose not to look at them, and you could even put a little disclaimer at the front being like, these trigger warnings will have spoilers to things you will read.
Yeah.
But even the idea of putting something that says trigger warnings on them means to the reader that there are things within the book that you can expect that could have a trauma response. And that itself is information. She doesn't even put that in there.
And like, the thing that gets me the most too, because I know some authors, especially in the age of Kindle, where they won't put a physical list in the book because like maybe they are really big spoilers for the book. So they'll put a link. And you just click on the link on your Kindle and it'll take you to the trigger list on their website.
And even if it's not on a Kindle, you can put the link on there and people can type. Like, people have the ability to do that.
Or they put it at the back of the book. They'll be like, triggers listed at the back of the book, so you don't have to scroll past them to get to the book. Totally fine. But they exist and they're there, and the author made a conscious choice to give them to you. As they should.
100%. 100%. So I think that's something that I would critique the author on the most out of anything. Like, I went in blind to this book. I probably should have known more about it before I did because of how popular it's been, but I had absolutely no idea what this book was about. But when some of those things happened for the first time, I was like, whoa, what the fuck? I was like, there wasn't even a mention of a trigger warning anywhere. And that was one of the first problems that I had with this book, among other things, and I could not get past that.
Even the first couple pages, like the rooftop scene, none of the characters were contemplating those things, but they were all mentioned.
Yes.
That should have been a trigger. Like, dead kids, thoughts of suicide, like self-harm, all of that should have been mentioned because it's all in the first chapter, and it just gets worse from there.
Seriously. Yeah, like the first chapter, I was like, whoa, this is like really weird. And then they kind of, what did Ryle and Lily call it? Naked truths. And I was like, this is such a lighthearted way to just have a bunch of trauma within it and to not share it beforehand. I didn't love it.
Yeah, it wasn't something I was comfortable with.
Yeah. And it was the whole book.
The whole thing was riddled with it.
Yeah. And well, okay, let's talk a little bit about what the book is about first. So we have Lily Bloom, who grew up in an abusive household. Her father abused her mom. Yeah. And had never abused Lily.
Except for the one time. And she also ended up befriending a kid who started living in a house right next to them that was abandoned, and he was homeless, and she started being nice to him and feeding him and all of those things. So half of this book is about that love story.
And then the other half is her as an adult. She moved off to Boston, which her and Atlas, the boy that she befriended as a kid, had always talked about going to Boston. So she ended up moving to Boston after her father dies. And she goes off on a rooftop after her father's funeral, where she had to share a eulogy, and she completely butchered it and just said nothing that she loves about her father and pieced out. So she was on the top of a random rooftop building, and Ryle comes out and starts kicking a chair and freaking out about a surgery that he had done.
Much like red flag number 1.
Right. And then Ryle and Lily starts to open her own floral shop, which has also been a dream of hers since being a kid, because she loves flowers and everything. And then Ryle's sister ends up coming to the floral shop being like, I want a job, I need something to do. And it ends up being Ryle's sister. Her and Ryle embark on this relationship, and the story evolves from there. That's my summary of the plot.
That's about it, honestly. that is the plot. And there were so many things about Lily that could have been so relatable.
Yeah.
But the writing just, like, couldn't get them there.
I'm going to start with that rooftop scene, because in the rooftop scene, Ryle asks her for her name. She says it's Lily. And then he's like, what's your last name? And she's like, Lily Bloom. It's awful. I hate it. And he was like, oh my God, your parents hate you. And then it ends up being Lily Blossom Bloom. And I wrote this down because I found it so contrived. And this is where the writing started to really get to me. She goes, but what makes it worse is that I absolutely love gardening. I love flowers, plants, growing things. It's my passion. It's always been my dream to open a florist shop, but I'm afraid if I did, people wouldn't think my desire was authentic. They would think that I was trying to capitalize off my name and that being a florist isn't really my dream job. Like, what? Like, you're worried that people wouldn't think that being a florist was your dream job, and that is what's stopping you from opening your floral shop?
Also, like, no one has to know your actual name. No one's gonna question it that far.
She called the flower shop Lily Blooms. She obviously didn't care that much.
Yeah. I know. That's the part that I kept thinking about that too, where I was like, if you're gonna be self-conscious about your name and the flower shop, call it something else.
Right. So it wasn't necessarily like this girl moves to Boston, she wants to be an entrepreneur, she wants to open up her own floral shop. She, like, the bones of the story weren't the problem for me. It was the writing that was super contrived. It was a little bit superficial. It didn't leave anything to subtext. I didn't have to think on anything it was saying. It was just all out there, and it wasn't put together very well.
Yeah, I think throughout it too, I kept being like, continuity here is just like not linking up in a way that I like at all.
Yeah.
Or like a lot of things had to be really, really stretched to make them make sense in a way that, because like, it sounds so hypocritical, but like in a dark romance, the expectation is you're suspending like a significant amount of disbelief to make this happen. But this is a contemporary romance, and I hold those to a very different standard.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot when it comes to fantasy or dark romances, where there is a level of escapism that you have to accept, that you're not going to think too hard about, are these actual reactions from a human? Are these things that they would actually say? This is a contemporary romance, and it was based on the author's own experiences. It was meant to start a conversation about domestic violence. So the more that she put in phrases that were like not really realistic or a little bit over the top, that made you take away from the seriousness of it, the more that it didn't match up, the two of them. And that's why I think that conversation she was trying to start about domestic violence and trying to make that a book around that type of conversation didn't work out for me.
Yeah, I think and I'll give her credit where credit's due. The depictions of domestic violence and the way she talked about it, very, like, I'm gonna say accurate to a lot of people's experiences, probably not everyone's, but like they were there, and that the justification, the mental gymnastics, all of that is like super valid and super realistic. It was just like everything around it that pulled away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like I was the kid whose mom crawled into bed with them to cry themselves to sleep at night. And I'm like, yeah, been there, done that.
Totally.
Granted, there was no violence in my home. It was just a lot of verbal abuse.
Right.
But, like, that part I actually liked. I appreciated that in the book. I thought that was well done. It was just, like, everything around it that was, like, so ostentatious and out of this world that I think, like, did you have to have a billionaire best friend? Was that necessary? We couldn't have had, like, real
There were so
relatable people around her.
There were so many tropey things, and I was talking about this. You were talking about it with Alyssa, the best friend who came into the shop with the millionaire husband and things like that. I was talking about it with Devin, who only showed up a couple of times, but that was her best friend, her gay best friend.
Were they best friends, though?
I don't really know.
Because she kind of just said he was some dude from work. She, like, didn't have friends.
Yeah,
So
she didn't have a ton of
brought
friends.
him.
Yeah, and so the character, like, served solely in a couple of chapters as the supporting character for Lily.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird in that response, because I think that we're past the point of having gay best friends who are literally just there to push them towards the man and, like, have no personality. It's just like, I'm the
plot
gay best
device.
friend, I'm stereotypical, I am flamboyant, I am this, which that's what we saw, I think, in the early 2000s when we were trying to get more representation. And now it's like, no, they are actually just people who also have goals and ambitions and things like that. You don't need to just pull in a gay best friend to, like, support the main character.
Have them have someone to talk to of the opposite gender, but, like, it has no stakes in the romance because it's impossible.
Yeah.
Because I know we talked about this during God of Fury, where we're like, it was really nice to have gay men represented in a way that wasn't just like, I'm flamboyantly gay and here to support a plot line.
Yeah, which I think this book was in 2016. We might still have been in that phase where,
That's true.
yeah, it might have been kind of still during that time where we were just introducing those into books and stuff. And we've come a long way since 2016 too. So there is that.
Yeah, I've spent my whole week exclusively in romance.
That's amazing. Yeah, but there were just a lot of tropey things in there.
Yeah, so many. And, like, I'm gonna say not good tropes, because they could be good tropes if you do them well. I think that they just didn't need to be in this book.
You also don't need to pile them off on each other, like rich best friend, gay best friend, and then, like, quits jobs to be an entrepreneur. Like, there were so many things that she was trying to put in this book, I feel, and some of them could have been good, but with the writing style, it just, like, wasn't.
It almost felt like there were too many plots all at once.
Yeah.
For her to keep track of all of them and then, like, really deliver on all of them too.
Yeah. Which is, we even said when we went to go see this movie, you said in the line, I haven't gone to hate watch a movie in a long time. We had very low expectations for that.
Oh, yeah. Like, really, really low expectations for this movie, because rarely do you go see a movie based on a book where it actually, like, is better.
Right?
Or is even on par with the book. So I was like, if this is worse than this book, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it's 2 hours and 10 minutes long.
We were shocked. It was 3 minutes longer than Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. That movie was longer than a Marvel movie.
And, like, that Marvel movie was really freaking good. And then we went to this after.
To be fair, that was one of the shorter Marvel movies ever.
This is true. This is very true.
But for a contemporary romance, 2 hours and 10 minutes is a hike.
Yes, especially because everything else has come out for contemporary romance recently, like Red, White, and Royal Blue, which, again, another great book.
That's
not
a
flamboyant.
movie now?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I actually really like the movie. A lot of people bash it. I haven't read the book. I've only seen the movie, and I think it's adorable.
I have heard a lot of really good things about that book. I would read the book, and then we could flip-flop.
Yeah.
That could be fun.
That it is. I thought it was pretty enjoyable. Other stuff that's come out for contemporary, it's all been on Prime. Like,
Yeah, you watch a lot of those.
the Harry Styles one, we're doing After at some point.
Yep.
Like, all of them, none of them have made it to a theater, so it's like, they're all really short.
which is crazy. It's not crazy when you know how successful Colleen Hoover is, that this one got into the movies, and then having Baldoni and Lively both support it. They had a budget, obviously, to do it. A lot of these other contemporary romances don't. But that's also what's so sad about all of these indie authors. It is so difficult to get a movie to go to theaters nowadays.
Yeah, you're way more likely to end up streaming, which is inherently like a way lower take home for the authors on these ones if they're getting a percentage of profits, because I don't know how Prime calculates their profits, but I imagine it's really similar to Spotify, where you're getting like fractions of pennies every time someone listens to your song.
Yeah. You would need someone to back you up, either a studio or a family with as much money as Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively.
Yeah, which I did look at the budget for this movie, and I think it was like $24 million. So Blake would have taken a pay cut on this, because that's about what they paid Ryan alone for Deadpool.
Damn. It made $7 million at box office on Thursday, and it's projected to make $25 to $35 million over the weekend. That's this weekend.
Pays back all the costs on it. You might be looking at another $10 million to pay for advertising, and then you're just profit from there. And that hasn't even hit streaming services yet.
Exactly. No wonder it's doing so well.
Oh, not a surprise at all. And even someone like me who, like, okay, would rather not back this stuff with my cash. But at the end of the day, I want more movies based on books, and if this does really well, it means that I have the potential where they actually get to books I want to see made into movies.
Yeah.
So, like, I probably still would have paid to see it anyway.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Just because at some point, the industry has to get to the point where they make something I'm really interested in to a movie.
Yeah.
Like, hockey romance, literally anything.
Right. Yeah.
That's not Colleen Hoover.
Yeah, and I fucking hate to say it, but the movie was better than the book in this scenario.
Yes. Yeah. I shockingly walked out of that and I was like, this was a genuinely like half decent movie. Like, I would watch this at home. I don't know if I'd pay to see it in theaters, but I'd stream it. No questions asked.
Yeah. And I think the consensus that we're going to have on it is that the writing was better and the message was just better portrayed in the movie than it was in the book with words.
Yes. Yeah. I think the writing in this one is what ended up making that book not enjoyable for me. And then on the movie, with the script they had for that, the pieces of the book they chose to keep and the pieces of the book they chose to get rid of really made a difference in the way that was portrayed, the message was received, all of that. I think across the board does not elicit the conversation around domestic violence they want it to.
Right.
Movie or book.
Yeah.
It's not hitting, it's not revolutionary, it's not about to create a wave of women willing to step out of those situations or feel empowered or any of that. I don't think it drives that conversation in a good way, because too many people, and I have a lot of thoughts about this, and we'll actually be talking about this on our next episode too, the misconception between romanticization, I don't even know how to say that word, but we know what I'm trying to say, and just depicting something horrible in a romance book. Like, you can have that, they can exist in the same place, and you cannot be romanticizing it but still showing it.
Yeah.
And I think what I found a lot for reviews for this one were people were like, well, this is just romanticizing domestic abuse, and I was like, it's really not in the book and not in the movie. Like, in no way is this either of those making me look at it and go like, wow, I really wish he'd hit me.
Right.
Like, I don't understand. And I can see you're like, maybe if you were raised in environments where these conversations weren't had, or you're like never experiencing any of this, even like secondhand, you might just read it and be like, oh, well, this is just making people think this is okay. But like, it really wasn't.
No, I don't think so. I think to your point about it not starting the conversation or being anything revolutionary, agreed. What I think that it might do, though, is maybe make some of these women who have either been in abusive relationships in the past or currently are or something like that feel seen or not alone.
Yeah.
Because what I do think the movie did a really good job of is depicting her internal struggles of what was happening in real time and in the past about the abuse really, really well. Better than the book.
Better than the book.
We were both about to say that at the same time.
Better than the book. I think so. In the book, you kind of, every incident that happens where he hits her, pushes her, hurts her in some way, you can see via her perspective, her like being like, oh, well, he like, it was an accident, he didn't mean to, or it was just this one time, versus in the movie you see her like basically rewrite history the second it happens.
Yeah.
Like, he pulls that thing out of the oven and accidentally elbows her while trying to like get his hand free.
And that is what you see in the moment.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I was like, yeah, that's not what happened. Wait, oh, are we actually pulling back the domestic abuse from the book a little bit? That's where I
was going too, especially for the stair one where it looks like she trips in front of him instead of him actually physically pushing her down the stairs.
And it's crazy because I was questioning what I saw too.
Yeah, I was like, did he? And it was so well done that I was like, wait, no, like, it doesn't look like he did that. Like, that looks like a valid accident that happened.
And then I went through the same thing when they were at dinner and Atlas sees the bruising for the first time. I was like, no, but it was an accident. Are we?
He didn't mean to do it.
And I was going through this mental gymnastics about, oh, are we actually changing a lot from the book and things like that? And then after the time where he was on top of her and she was struggling and she kept saying no, that one was a little bit more clearer. Even though you didn't really see him bite her tattoo, that one was a bit more clear, and that was like, oh no, this is abuse, 100%. And then she gets into the car and she replays each of the abuse scenes over in her head, and they were different. It wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
It was very clear that he was hitting her.
Yeah, like, he turned around and he backhanded her, and he like physically pushed her down those stairs, and you get to see like the full arm movement and contact. And I was like, oh, and I was like, that is actually really well done, because it is the mental gymnastics you do in those situations to be like, oh, it's like he didn't mean to do it, or it was an accident, or it was my fault. Like, I shouldn't have been that close, or I shouldn't have been following or yelling. And I was like, oh, this makes so much more sense now. And I like the way that was portrayed so much better in the movie.
It made you go through it with her versus in the book. There was just a miss in the storytelling. It was blatant. There was no subtext. It was no big reveals or anything like that. I didn't go through any mental gymnastics. I was just reading something on a page that said, and then he touched the hot pot, and then he got mad at me, and then he backhanded me, and then you kind of just saw her go through this mental gymnastics, but you're like, but he abused you. We just read that he did, and you are aware of it, and this is really obvious. In the movie, I feel like it did such a better job at going through the complexities of brainwashing and the excuses that you make for other people, especially the people that you love. And I went through that as a viewer, and that made it better storytelling.
So much better. I think that's one of the biggest things that made me enjoy the movie more, was the fact that you got to like actually live it with her instead of being a spectator that just had to like scream at her while you're reading the book, being like, you need to leave now.
Yeah, and she knew that she needed to leave in the book, whereas in the movie it was so much less obvious, and going through that with her made it so much better of a story, and it made me feel the things that she was feeling. Normally, I feel those more in the books.
Yeah, same.
So it was crazy to see that.
And like, if you're like on the fence about the movie, I'd watch it. If you're okay with the content in it and like you're curious, maybe wait till it's on a streaming service.
Right.
Collie doesn't necessarily need more of your money, but like, it wasn't bad.
No. One of the other things that we both really, really liked, that I saw a lot of controversy on the internet, was how Blake Lively chose to portray Lily.
Yes.
The style specifically, her clothes. And we loved her clothes.
Yeah, I was here for the eclectic, like, flower shop owner. It was perfect.
Oh
That's what I want. When I walk into a small business flower shop, I want my owner to be like, well, out there.
In overalls.
Thrifted.
Yes. It
So
was
cute.
Oh my god, I loved her outfits. I loved the denim on denim. I loved her overalls and all of them.
The cute oversized jackets.
Yes, oh my god, at the party when she showed up in the baggy pants, the cute like bralette, black bralette with the big thing, her hair all curly and big. Oh, I loved it. I thought it was so perfect for the type of character she was. And I think even more so than that, the character in the movie was literally not like the other girls.
Yeah.
In romance movies, you see the same girls over and over again. She was different. I liked that.
Even her personality, I thought, was so much fun in the movies. Like, I've gotten in trouble at work for this before, and I'm like mildly better at it, but giggling at inappropriate times.
I get in
Like, when
trouble
you're
from my
uncomfortable.
boyfriend about it.
Yeah, like if I'm having a really serious conversation or someone's just delivered like really terrible news, I'm gonna laugh. And she did too, and I was like, that's so relatable and cute as a character, just being like, oh, like that's how you deal with stress, is you crack jokes, you laugh, you like do the opposite of what everyone expects you or you should be doing. And I liked that. I liked how her character had like a little bit more depth to her in the movie.
And the movie heavily focused on Lily's character. And that was something that we talked about yesterday after we saw it, and I thought a little bit more about it today. Atlas had little to no of a personality, especially after he moved into the Marines from Maine, were they in originally?
Yeah.
When he moved to Boston from Maine, we didn't get any holes filled in about really like what happened. We know he opened his own restaurant. We knew he always loved the girl, always would. That was kind of his whole personality. He would do anything for her, and he didn't have much more depth to that, in my opinion, in the movie. He didn't in the book either. And then Ryle, same thing. He was a neurosurgeon, and he had this, terrible traumatic past that has caused him to behave the way that he is as an adult, and he hasn't, just like gone to therapy or anything like that. To solve that, even as a medical professional who would know that therapy might support him with his past, but we're just gonna leave that one alone.
Yeah.
That was kind of his only personality. They pulled back Alyssa, that character, in the movie a lot, which I think both of us appreciated.
Yes.
And then the other characters that were in the book basically didn't show up at all.
Which makes so much more sense, especially in a movie, because you can't develop, like in a book it's pretty easy. Well, not gonna say pretty easy. In a book there's more opportunity to develop your side characters and have them in more situations and like get to know them, versus in a movie you're really, unless you're like Game of Thrones, following one individual through, or like I'm gonna keep using Deadpool and Wolverine because it's the last thing we saw, or like two people doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
You follow them through. You can't have all this like side stuff going on.
And they didn't need it either. Like if the topic was to start a conversation about domestic abuse and develop this character and have that character be the center of that conversation, that's all you needed to do. Adding characters, adding complexities to it was going to make it an issue. Like Alyssa in the book was struggling to get pregnant. That was a really short piece of information that you provided about her that added to her character development that would have just complicated the movie and taken away from the other portions of it.
Yeah.
So I'm actually more okay with the fact that the characters were less developed in the movie, because it maintained the focus on what the movie was actually about. I would have liked a little bit more from Atlas.
Just in a general sense, my biggest pet peeve with the people who like this book, and don't get me wrong, I don't judge you for liking this. You like what you like. I'll take anything that gets people into reading. I know a lot of people who started Colleen Hoover realize it's not great and then move on to other really amazing books. Awesome.
Yeah.
But I'll take anything that gets someone to pick up a book.
Totally.
But you all fucking did us dirty, being like, Atlas is the most amazing man who's ever walked this earth. I love him so much. He's my favorite male character of all time. The fuck did Atlas do? Nothing. He's in maybe, as an adult, 30 pages. Even as in the diary, he's in nothing. And then he's in like maybe 30 pages of this book. Has like 10 lines of dialogue. And everyone's like, oh, I love Atlas. He's so amazing.
The reason everybody loves Atlas is because he does absolutely nothing but love the girl. That's
like,
what...
bare minimum of necessity, even in loving her, the bare minimum of what he should be doing.
Like, he lied to her about having a girlfriend.
Yeah. Like, cool, you picked her up. Which, don't even get me started on the stupid number thing that she magically remembers from the thing she has in her phone case that she forgot was there. I don't know.
Oh,
The movie did that better too. Instead of her like finding the phone number or magically remembering it,
she just went to his
restaurant.
workplace
Yeah.
that she knows that he's
gonna be there because he owns it. Makes so much more sense. So much better.
Like in the book, it was she looked at the piece of paper with his phone number every single day and ended up memorizing it so that when Ryle tore it up, she was still able to call him. Like it was a stretch. She was trying to fill in a hole and she didn't do a very good job of it.
Yeah, movie way better. And clearly everyone that wrote that script agreed with us because they got rid of it. But like, yeah, I was like, if I called like the fictional world where I have a boyfriend or a partner and they were harming me and I called any one of my friends to come get me, they would. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not something special Atlas did. It is just human decency.
Yeah. And, you know, his comments in the top 10 businesses in Boston, like, was it kind of cute? It was like, oh, yeah, I named it after her and everything like that. But it still wasn't, like, just putting on your big boy pants and telling her that you still loved her or anything. And then, you know, like, he got mad about the abuse, which great. But
as you should.
As you fucking should. Bare minimum. The reason we all liked him in the movie was because he was fucking gorgeous.
Yeah, he's very pretty. Although, I will say, I almost exclaimed out loud at the theater when he drops her off after having him at his apartment for the night. And he just, like, magically had a mustache. I was like, what is happening? Where did it come from?
I wonder if that was to signify how long it had been. Like, I wonder because the second I saw it, I was like, what? I was like, is that the only indication that you're gonna have it's been 3 weeks or something? I like the mustache, though. I'm a sucker for a mustache.
Don't get me wrong. Mustache, not bad. It was just, like, suddenly there.
And I think the mullet got longer, too.
Maybe. I was so blinded by the mustache.
But I was so into it. I was like, mullet and a mustache? Sign me up. I'm from southern Alberta. Like...
There's your bread and butter. I was like, what is happening right now?
But it really did. I was
Bam.
like, has he never... He that mustache wasn't always there, was it?
No. Or at least it wasn't that full.
No.
Like, something changed overnight. And there's no delineation of time in this book other than, like, or in the movie, other than, like, they'll, like, randomly show you the seasons of change. You're like, okay, it's fall, it's winter, it's spring, got it.
Yeah.
But other than that, if you're doing incremental time that's not season dependent, no idea how much time's passed, which I appreciated in the movie.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. I think the timeline in the book is way too long.
Mm-hmm. It was.
But mustache maybe wasn't the most indicative way of showing time. I don't know how long he's decided to have that. To me, it showed up like the next day he suddenly just had a mustache. And I was
and sometimes that happens. Like, I see Jake's beard grow over the course of, like, 2 days.
Yeah.
And then some men it takes years. Like, that's literally not an indication.
I have no idea how long has passed. I don't know what his hair growth pattern is. Therefore, I have no idea. That one bugged me.
They should have put that in the end credits. Like, his hair grows at a pace.
1/8 of an inch a day. Measure his beard hair now. Yeah, it bugged me. The other thing I thought they changed for the movie that was not necessarily... Like, I understand they did this exclusively to get Blake to play this character. I don't care what they say otherwise, but aging the characters up, unnecessary.
Agreed. And we talked about this because in the book, she was 23, 24 at this time.
Yeah.
Something around there, which I thought was a good age for her to be in this movie. Because it was, like, her first real adult relationship. She had only grown up seeing her mom and her dad as indications of what a relationship is. And so it makes sense at that age that, you know, she's just entering a relationship. It's easier for her to make excuses. Her frontal lobe is not fully developed at that point.
she can fall into these patterns, and it's easier to justify with less real world experience.
Yeah. They were quite a bit more aged. I think the biggest indication that they were older than they were in the book is that Ryle was already a full neurosurgeon at this point, whereas in the book, he was still in his residency.
Yeah. And I also thought it just made more sense for their characters, too. Like, he's like, oh, I never do relationships. I'm like, I doubt in your, it's probably like 38 at that point, years of life, no woman has gotten you to go on like a couple more than one date. Or like her.
And if he hasn't,
That is a huge red flag.
red flag. Like, do not date.
Yeah, that man has issues that other women have identified as issues, and you should flee. Flee. Or like her starting her own business randomly, like quitting her job and just going to do that. Way more likely decision to make in your early 20s than it is in your 30s. Unless you're pushing into like your later 30s. Like I can see myself being like, we're pulling a 180 at like 38.
Yeah. But also did they actually indicate their ages at that time? I don't know that they really...
They didn't really tell us how old they were.
Yeah.
It was just abundantly clear they weren't in their early to late 20s.
Right. Probably late 20s, early 30s kind of deal, I'd guess.
I'd assume so.
Yeah. That seems probably more accurate, but they also didn't share it in the movies, which again is probably to your point because they wanted Blake Lively to be in it, and she is almost 40 now, 37?
Yeah, 36, 37.
Yeah.
So like she can't pull off 23-year-old.
Sorry, Blake.
Gorgeous, but
yeah,
it's going to take a lot of filler, and you probably don't want to do that. Or your budget's going up for CGI. Then you need Disney to start backing you.
Yeah. But I did appreciate how vague a lot of those things were. It left more into the subtext and the way that it made you feel, and I think it did a really, really good job at that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think at the end of the day, the movie was significantly better.
Thank God for that.
I remember sitting, it was first starting, and I was like, I swear, if this starts with a long fucking narrated exposition, I'm gonna leave.
Let's just get up and leave. We're not doing this.
If this starts off like Twilight, it's not getting any better. If we're explaining this, we need to leave.
Yeah, so fair. Oh man. I'm glad it was good in theaters. Do we think that Colleen Hoover is a fan of Ellen?
Oh god. I was reading that and I was like, this did not age well.
2016. What was society's view on Ellen in 2016?
Pretty positive.
Okay,
sure.
so
yeah, no, she would have been like a major cultural, like she would have been going viral all the time for guests and jokes and memes and shit.
Yeah. Your opinion on the Ellen situation is, with journal entries, like we all growing up addressed our letters to, people or celebrities or something, like,
yeah.
Understood that. What I could have done without is entire chapters of just journal entries.
I always prefer, okay, I actually have a few things on this one. I always prefer flashbacks. I find they're way more
I was
impactful.
just gonna say.
2, her writing style does not evolve one day in any of those journal entries. Not even differing from like the regular book. What's the word I want? Tone, I guess. Like it didn't change. Like the journal entries were just chapters that were in italicized font and addressed to Ellen. Like there wasn't any difference between the two. It didn't read like a 15-year-old was writing that at all. And then later, I think she did one as an adult.
Yep.
And it didn't change at all. Which, like, if you're going to do journal entries, you need to put in a conscious effort to make them journal entries of a child or young adult at that age, not just like, I'm going to exposition away in the exact same tone as everything else. That irked me a lot. I
would have preferred flashbacks, but I think if she was going to do flashbacks, I think she would have needed to be a better writer, because she can't fall in the fact like, oh, a 15-year-old wrote this. Like, no, you would have had to be an adult flashing back into
the mindset of a 15-year-old.
The mindset of a 15-year-old, or just like describing the events, which I don't think that she was capable of doing. I don't think she was capable of writing what happened when she was 15 to 19 or whatever as like a well-written novel. I think she leaned on these journal entries to be seen as a 15-year-old, but they didn't even hit that way. And it was just like blatant to like what happened today and things like that. I didn't like it.
Yeah, and I don't know about everyone else in their journal entries, but mine, one, didn't quote the conversations happening verbatim ever.
Yeah.
That's weird. Personally, not how I wrote any journal entries. And I always had a lot more of, like, a journal entry is from a place of I went through this, I felt like this,
Were they not?
I don't think they were.
Oh my
they
God.
were a lot more, like, not necessarily, like, third person, but they were very descriptive of what was happening and not what she was feeling.
Right. No, they totally. So it was literally just Colleen Hoover trying to make the flashbacks make sense, but they weren't flashbacks. She used journal entries, but she didn't write them like journal entries.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure some of my journals from not that age, I wasn't journaling at that age, I was on a computer at that time, but like I have some from when I was like 8 or 9 somewhere in my house. We're not opening those. But the point being, I've seen them and they're not written like that.
My journal entries were like, I am sad today. I am mad that my best friend, like,
There's hot goss in mine, for sure. I remember that much.
nice.
It's very evident I was dyslexic. Just so obvious. And I
This woman hasn't spelled a there properly in her entire life.
yeah, it was bad. It was really, really bad. And I was like, I cannot believe no one was like, we should probably think about this. Horrible. And actually, one of the things that I thought she could have done with the journal entries to make them more impactful was written them to her mom, because I remember doing that a couple times.
Yep.
Was like, because you can't beg them to leave.
Yeah.
But
It was a weird thing to add that it was just to Ellen DeGeneres because she loved the show, or this is like this kind of character personality trait of Lily's. I thought it was just a little bit misplaced. It was kind of just another added personality trait that didn't need to be in there. And
could have been done in a different way, like the way her and Atlas just watched it every day when he came home. It was like what was on TV, and it became their thing. Super cute. Do that.
it was just adding too much to a book that she wanted to be as a conversation for domestic violence, which is why the movie did it so much better. They focused on Lily, her character struggling with domestic abuse. That is what the movie focused on. The book focused on her friendships and her obsession with Ellen and like all of these other things that are totally fine to have in a story and totally necessary and make sense. But if your goal was to start a conversation about domestic abuse and make women feel seen and heard and understand the complexities of it, then I think you would have been better served to take away all of this other fluff that didn't really matter and just focus on the character and the things she was struggling with.
You had more time in the flower shop, in my opinion. That would have been really cool to like watch her almost do self-soothing therapy through like her flower arrangements, more description of how she was using those to cope with like the difficulty she was feeling emotionally around Ryle, and like maybe even talk about how like they start off really beautiful and colorful and like descend into that darkness over time, and like you can like see it happen subtly. There's so many cool things she could have done with the things that really mattered to Lily that like just didn't happen. Like the flower shop basically dies as a plot point the second they get together.
Yeah.
I can't even really remember it.
Yeah. And some of the books that I can think of that does this really well, because I obviously read a lot of literary and contemporary fiction novels, is like A Little Life. I will never stop talking about that book. Notes on an Execution talks about the death penalty in the USA and really did an amazing job with the flashbacks of the guy who ended up going through the death penalty, about his childhood and what made him the way he was. And, you know, he was a serial killer in this novel, and like the women that he ended up killing, and did a really good job at the actual character development and focusing on what led to that without all of these other unnecessary things. The things that Colleen Hoover added into this book that took away from what she wanted the conversation to be about was making it also a lighthearted contemporary romance. Those two didn't mesh well in the book, not with her writing style.
No. And like you kind of saw a little bit more of it in the movie.
Yes, way more.
Like even the flower shop. We spent a lot more time at the flower shop.
Which was amazing. Like the vibe was good. I liked that the vibe kind of crossed over with Atlas's restaurant.
Yeah,
they
like
were
dark,
similar.
gloomy, moody feel of them.
Yeah, because you could show that, you know, that love was never lost and that they kind of grew up together and inspired each other's styles and dreams and things like that, which I thought was really special. And I thought it was a nice touch to just add some depth to that relationship because they didn't get a ton of screen time together. And to see, you know, the opposite of Ryle and Lily too in the movie, because Ryle's apartment was super minimalistic and
very
it was
postmodern,
very clean and had all the nice things, and Lily just wasn't that way. And I think they did a really good job at showing the just opposing characters in that way. And that was the subtext. Those are the things that made me feel more in the movie that, again, I usually get from the book, but I didn't this time because she just tried to add too much.
Agreed. Yeah. I think the other thing I liked that they removed in the movie that was in the book was, and they left this pretty open, but there was no like direct scene that shows them co-parenting after.
Yeah.
Which I appreciated because
that was one of the big complaints about the book from viewers and readers.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine a world in which I let the human being that harmed me raise our child or have them by themselves. You want supervised visitation? Absolutely. You want to go to the aquarium and have your sister with you while you do it? Sure.
Yeah.
But like, you're not taking that child into your home by yourself, especially if you ever got another girlfriend or something. Absolutely not. No world in which that happens.
No. Right? And she should know that better than anybody because she grew up in that household, knowing that, like, in the reality is the fact that her dad never touched her or anything like that is one thing, but also, is that not kind of already a form of abuse?
It absolutely is. There was a lot of yelling when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Not all of it was directed at me. My mom, well, a little bit, but like my dad's ex-wife was the fucking worst human being known to man.
Agreed.
And it's the thing now as an adult where like if someone screams, like I shut
That's
down.
the trigger for you, yeah. Right.
How often do people scream your name across a room? So often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like it's hard to speculate on that knowing that like we haven't lived that, but also what I think the book just didn't have is the complexities of how they got there. And I think that's what pissed people off because Colleen Hoover spoke out on this and said, you know, I wanted to really share with the world all of the different complexities. It's not just black and white. And that is fair. That is true.
Yeah.
100%. I can't speculate on like what I would or wouldn't do in that situation, but what would have been nice to have in that is how did you get there with him? Because what I think is shitty is that it just went from I want a divorce and I can't do this to all of a sudden, well, you know what? I trust him with my daughter. How did you get there? Because that is not a normal trust to just automatically have.
Especially in the book where he doesn't take any actual personal responsibility for those actions. He just says he blacks out and then therefore becomes another human being who hits her or pushes her or harms her.
You're telling me that like you just automatically have trust that he's not going to black out when he's angry at his daughter, which will inevitably happen because that daughter is going to be a teenage girl and she is going to piss you off. Like,
yeah, she's going to laugh at you and say things to you that you're not going to enjoy. I know I did.
This man has literally never done a single piece of work to resolve the trauma that he experienced as a kid, and you don't think that that is just gonna automatically get resolved with your child. I didn't like how it did it. There was absolutely no like agreement of like, okay, you're gonna go to therapy, you're gonna go doing this, like, and this, like, if she was gonna do it that way, there needed to be something in there that showed how they got there.
Yeah, something drastic would have had to been taking place, happening. Like, maybe it was supervised visitation. Maybe he was only allowed to have his daughter while he was at Alyssa's. But sure. Elizabeth's a little too sympathetic, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But, like, at least there's someone there who knows the history, who
Yeah.
knows what could happen, and could be very aware of what's happening
Yeah.
in their lives.
Show the complexities, piss some people off doing it. I am the queen of reading books that have complicated characters and frustrating characters and characters who do things that I'm not proud of. Show us how you got there so that I can at least feel something about it.
Yeah, just don't be like, and I handed her off to him on the street and said goodbye for the week. I'm like, what do you mean? What? Absolutely not.
Right?
Oh.
Yeah,
No.
or like at least show the complications of like maybe she's really struggling with it, but she didn't take him to court about the domestic abuse, so he
Or maybe she
legally
lost.
has. Yeah, like show the complexities of how you got there and give me pain, give me some feeling, give me some like happiness. Maybe he's going to therapy and maybe he's doing like a redemption arc or whatever. Like show me that there was substance between her wanting a divorce and her trusting him with this child, or not trusting him and her having to like give him split custody and how she's dealing with that. That is what I want to see if she's going to do it that way.
And I didn't even have to add that much length to the book. Like, I think you could achieve that in 20 pages or less.
Yeah.
With just some really deep, either retrospection on her part, or with like some quick courtroom.
She
pieces.
could have achieved about 100 pages less with that whole book, just in general, if she had cut some of the bullshit out.
Yeah.
And kept the conversation on track for what she wanted to achieve out of it. Those are all the problems I had with that book. But I did like the movie.
I did like the movie.
Resentfully a little bit, because I really do feel like the book is usually better than the movie, and I like that the book is better than the movie, you know? I'm one of those
Really
assholes.
validating.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm like, no, you like really need to read this book because it adds just so much to this.
Yeah.
And, like, they had to lose so many important pieces to make this into a movie.
I know, and I hate when I'm proven wrong. I hate when I have to get up there and swallow my pride and say that the book was better. I hate it. But Blake Lively, Justin Baldini,
You made a movie that was better than the book.
Ryan Reynolds, you had a part in it. All the actors, you guys did it.
You delivered
Congratulations.
really well.
Yeah, I cried.
Yeah, Haley did cry. I heard her sniffling, and I didn't laugh this time.
You usually laugh when I
I
cry.
usually laugh when she cries in movies.
When we watched Lord of the Rings last weekend, and at the end of Return of the King, I could not hold back. And I was sobbing, and Jake was laughing at me, and he was like trying not to laugh or trying not to look at me out of just like respect for my hard comings of this movie. And he looked over me at one point, and I looked back, and as I looked back, I was kind of like having a hard time breathing, so I did one of those like, and like snot just like came out of my nose during it because my allergies were also really bad.
Oh, man.
I didn't cry that hard, but I cried.
You did cry. There were tears. There was sniffs. I think, was it Wakanda Forever? At the end credits there where they had Chadwick and like the kid and whatever, and Haley was like bawling, and I got like here's.
I was third wheeling on that day too.
No, because Megan was there too.
Megan was there.
Yeah, so the Megan was there, and I had my ex, and he thought I was crying, and I was uncontrollably laughing, trying so hard to be quiet because we're in this super emotional scene, and obviously one of the most emotional movies, and surrounded by Marvel fans, and I'm like, I cannot laugh right now, but I was so hard not to be so loud because it was just.
And I think I get louder when I try to be quiet. Like if I just kind of like let it out, I might be quieter, but when I'm trying to keep it in and not tell people that I'm crying, every once in a while there's just a I like can't control myself.
So funny. That gets me every time. I didn't laugh this time. I will say though, the emotion, yeah, the last or the hospital scene that is
Yes.
in both book and movie hits so hard in the movie.
Yeah.
Because you get to watch his face just like
Yeah.
fall.
The actress did such a good job at portraying what the message was.
Yeah.
And just like taking you up and down on that emotional roller coaster. And it was actually the scene with Judy, her mom, Lily, and their daughter Emmy, the three of them. I don't know what it is about three generations of women, But whew, that one, like as soon as I saw that, I was like,
Fair.
yeah.
My family had 4 until 2 years ago.
Yeah, they did. Holy fuck.
Yeah, there's a lot of pictures.
And it ends with you.
Yeah, there sure should be more. Child free. That's okay, it's probably best.
Probably.
You know where she's like, it ends with us, so there's no more domestic violence? It ends with me, so there's no more mental health problems.
Fair enough.
And also, so much domestic abuse.
Oh no.
Just so much. 4 generations worth, baby.
The laughing is our coping mechanism.
Yeah, no, remember what I said earlier at inappropriate times?
Yeah, there it is.
Inappropriate times.
There it is. That's so funny.
But yeah, so I honestly related with this book decently because it does, like, at the end of the day, I'm like, I understand this from this plot. I wish it was executed so much better. And I have other authors in, like, the fantasy wide shoe space where I'm like, you have such amazing ideas, but I just can't get through all your books because you fucking can't write worth shit.
No,
And that's what this is.
That's the thing. It was just the writing style, but I will say that I am grateful that we actually got to see it on screen in a better way, because I think they did a really good job at exploring it.
Yeah. No, I think this is more likely to spark the conversation they wanted because holy fuck, the people sitting beside me were so goddamn annoying.
On your side?
Yeah. They talked the whole way through. She was like explaining plot points to him from the book. And like this man was probably like 56, 60 years old. And she was probably like, she looked like she was in her 40s. And just, he did not give a shit. And she would not stop talking. And I was like, please stop. But no.
Of course not.
Through.
All the way through.
It's painful.
Yeah, that's the worst. I went and saw Deadpool and Wolverine again with Jake when I was up, and I was like sitting next to this other couple, and it was such a reverse gender role situation because me and the other girl were both explaining things to our partner about the Marvel universe.
Nice.
And so like, and her and I think we had a couple glances where we were just like laughing, or we were like waiting for something to happen because I think she had already seen it too. Okay. This is the whole picture that I'm painting in my head. I did not talk to either of these people, but I could see her like getting ready for something, and then I was like also getting ready for something, and then we'd explain it to our partners, and I was like, this is awesome, first of all. And then second of all, after the movie ended, I was like talking to Jake about it, and I was like, I think I did a really good job at making sure that like I wasn't, you know, in suspense when things were about to happen. I think I kept my cool. And he just looked at me and he was like, you did not keep your cool at all. I knew every single time when something was about to happen. I was like, fuck.
Tried.
I tried really hard.
Failed, obviously, but tried.
Anyways, long story short, that sounds like something I would do in a movie.
Hopefully you do it quieter.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah,
I could
no
hear
kidding.
every word. And she was the one on the other side of, like, I was beside him and she was over human. Yeah.
Oh my god.
It was loud.
Yikes. That's annoying. I hate it when people talk in movies. Well, that's what we think about It Ends With Us. That was fun. I'm glad we did it.
Honestly, same. It was a good experience.
It was.
I'm never touching another one of her books unless I have to.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah.
The only way that I'll do it is if social media begs me to.
Yeah.
Which I don't foresee happening.
Throw in here so people don't flay us alive for Colleen Hoover. I'm aware she's a problematic for like so many different reasons, and we're not diving into all those on this podcast because one, a lot of them are unsubstantiated in ways that I'm not comfortable speaking about it. Because I like not getting defamation suits personally. And two, we would be here all day if we went into all the reasons why she's problematic. And yeah, just know that like we've done our research on this. It's just we've made conscious choices not to cover some things.
And if you like her books and you like her writing, then great, like good for you. I'm not here to shame anybody for liking a certain type of books. This is a very, very popular author. People love her books, and to your point from earlier, if it gets people to pick up a book, then great. Power to you. It is easy writing. It is mindless. If that's what you choose to use as your escape mechanism, or you like those types of books, or if that book made you feel seen in any way for relatability in it, then power to you. I'm not here to like be negative towards an author because of it. This is our opinions, and we don't need to get into all the intricacies of why she herself is problematic. If you're interested, that information is readily available to you.
Just Google it.
Literally.
Trust me, there'll be so many.
Literally.
So many articles, and then you can like dive into a TikTok black hole for the next 10 hours.
And make your decision yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Thank you for listening. You can give us a like, a subscribe, a follow. You can find me on social media as Dare You Can Read on Goodreads, TikTok, Instagram. You can find the podcast under Whimsically Wicked on all of those too, except for Goodreads. We don't have that because, oh boy, would that be a strange account.
Yeah. And we read some of the same books. It would be weird.
Yeah.
Just follow us individually. I'm Haley Johnson with a fancy little underscore on all of those same things. And like Daria said, give us a subscribe, give us a like. All of these things help a ton. Give us a comment on what you think. I love talking to all of you about certain things that you think of about what we say.
All right. See ya in 2 weeks.
Bye.